Karun is a data scientist, a senior data scientist at Walmart, and he has an incredible story that he will share with you today because he's been through a lot of tough job markets in his professional career. And today he's going to share all the tips and tricks that helped him break through this tough industry. And I am super happy for him to come and join us and speak. Welcome, Karun.
Thank you, Mary, for that intro. And thanks everyone for joining. Good evening to all, or good morning, depending upon which time zone you're in. And today I we'll be talking about landing a DS role in 2024, probably one of the hardest job markets we have faced right now. So pretty much gonna cover what the job market is looking like, sort of to set your expectations right, how to increase the chance of getting a call back, and how to approach interview preparation, things like that.
Right?
So,
Yeah, we can. Just to give you a structure, Karuna is going to go through his presentation, and at the end, you guys will have a chance to ask questions. So prepare them all and make sure to ask them in the chat. And yeah, go ahead, Karun.
cool. Just a bit about me so that you know where this information is coming from and the context behind it. I did my bachelor's in computer science and engineering in India, worked 4 years as a software development engineer, then came to US to do my master's in data science from Carnegie Mellon, and landed my first job as a data scientist with Amazon. Um, Currently working as a senior data scientist with Walmart e-commerce. So both of those times I sort of navigated somewhat hard job markets. One in 2020 during COVID, where we had multiple internships and PPO, I mean pre-placement offers being rescinded because COVID had impacted a lot of companies very differently. And then again in 2023, during the layoff market, a lot of us got laid off and we had to struggle and figure out a new job. And especially for folks like me who are immigrants, we have 60 days to figure out a new job. So a pretty short window to land a new job, and a huge pool of candidates sort of scrambling over few opportunities. So was able to navigate both those job markets, and what I learned during both those times, and certain strategies that I changed up during both those times, and what worked for me during the second one, essentially the 2023 market. That's what I'm hoping to share. And so far, been sharing this for about a year or so on LinkedIn, and been mentoring folks one on one on TopMate, and been able to garner a fairly decent sized audience, around 20,000 on LinkedIn, and TopMate I've conducted, I think, today around 5,000 plus bookings on TopMate. So that's a bit about me and a bit about the context behind my sort of advice, I guess, around the job market. So diving into the 2024 market, as everyone knows, it's probably one of the tougher job markets, especially for folks working in tech. Like multiple surveys have come out. Some companies are reporting that they usually have a callback, or they do a callback rate of 1%, which means about for 100 applicants, they call back maybe one person. So that's essentially extrapolating that the chance of us getting a call back if we apply to, let's say, 100 companies is pretty low. And there are multiple reasons for this. And one of the main ones is sort of the changes in the tax code, which essentially means that each time a company is now hiring somebody, especially in the entry and mid-level roles, they have to think, will this person sort of will this hire essentially pay off in the next 5 years? Typically, for entry and mid-level roles, that's statistically been a no, which is why companies are a bit more hesitant or slower right now when hiring mid or entry level roles. And this is where sort of the hard part of cracking a role comes into picture. And I'm providing this information not to sort of demotivate anybody, but primarily to make sure that you get your mindset right. It's not an impossible task, it's just a tough and long process. So during that process, you would feel like a lot of time you're sending out a lot of applications and you're not getting a lot of response. So it feels like you don't really matter, that nobody's actually seeing you. But you need to get your mindset right. This application process is probably gonna be long, and irrespective of whatever outcome, whatever rejection, whatever more than rejection, non-responses happen, you have to make sure that you do matter. The application process is completely independent of your mental state, and because the process tends to be long, a lot of people feel like they don't see a way out, and more often than not, I tell folks that during the first 1 to 2, 1 month, 1.5 months of networking, sending out applications, they really don't get any responses. But then, like 1.5 months later, one after another, you'll get callbacks. One after another, you get interview invites. So you just need to keep at it. It sort of starts exponentially building up over time. So continue putting in that effort, and yes, that it does take time. So more than any of the other advice that I can get, if you get your mindset right, irrespective of what your resume looks like, your callbacks, your networking, if you keep your mindset right and if you're willing to tough it out, you'll eventually land up with a role. So this is like the key takeaway from the presentation, and this is why I wanted to keep it first. So yeah, make sure you understand you'll be in it for somewhat a relatively long haul. Cool. Now, coming to the first thing that probably you're going to face issues with, which is getting callbacks, getting a recruiter to pick up your resume, getting them to invite you for a call, for an interview, anything of that sort. So, the first thing to improve callbacks, you have to understand what exactly are they looking for. Now, a typical person, a typical student, a typical maybe a candidate with a little experience, they usually think, what's a data science role? Data science role is essentially I have to read papers, I build models, and then everybody praises me for immensely improving business. More often than not, that's not the case. Model building, especially, is like a very small amount of your project life cycle. Essentially, I wouldn't say day to day. Your day to day maybe some days can be very heavy on model building. But during your entire project life cycle, if it lasts like 100 days, 20 days, you'll probably be spending on data analysis and hypothesis testing, which means you'll be talking to a lot of people, you'll be figuring out where to get data from, what that data means, how to connect different data sources, and figuring out what data is usable and then what data is valuable. Then about 20 days you'll be running experiments. Essentially, you would have a task you want to solve, and you want to figure out, is this task solvable at all? You're not even getting to the modeling place at this point. You'll essentially develop a baseline which isn't a machine learning baseline, something rule based, something statistical, and you're essentially trying to see if machine learning can add any kind of value using a simple ML model, typically linear regression, maybe a decision tree or a random forest, something that you can churn up using sklearn in a small amount of time with a small amount of data. So it's going to be a lot of experimentation, again, a lot of talking to people, a lot of trying to understand if you're solving for the right thing. Then 20 days is sort of the portion that's taught in a lot of colleges and in a lot of graduate programs, which is feature engineering, modeling, and very few programs, the error analysis part. So deciding how to massage your features and create like a usable set of features that you can feed into your model. Experimenting with different versions of the model. This is where you might read papers, figure out how you can solve this problem in the best manner possible. And the last one, error analysis, which is sort of um, the most important portion, important technical skill a data scientist can develop, which is essentially figuring out where your model is going wrong and why is it going wrong. This is also a portion, if you get really good at it, comes across well in interviews, and to the interviewer also. It shows that you're thinking things through when you're, especially when you're putting models into production. You're thinking about the fact that the model might make erroneous predictions in this area. And when you're in production, making erroneous predictions always has a downside. So you're building a certain kind of guardrails to protect any kind of negative impact on production. So error analysis is a very cool thing to get very good at, and it comes across well during interviews when you're talking about your project. The last one is productionization. So essentially, usually it's on some kind of cloud stack like AWS or GCP. You deploy it, you sort of figure out how to scale it, and do some A/B testing. And before A/B testing, again, you'll do a huge round of validations about your stakeholders going to ask what happens when we, in this kind of scenario, what happens to this small segment of the data, what happens to this small subset of population. So a lot of validation, a lot of analytics, a lot of reporting that you'll have to do, but finally you get to hopefully do the A/B testing, show that your model has produced some kind of impact on business. So this is essentially what a data scientist day to day looks like. So knowing this, what can you sort of how can you sort of reflect that on into your resume, into your portfolio, and so on. So it's essentially starting with the main thing, which is your portfolio. You need to make sure that your projects represent the day to day of a data scientist, or you have marketable projects essentially. So especially for entry and mid-level candidates, there are like a few projects that I feel is marketable, primarily because of how many interview or callbacks that I got compared to other folks, and how many callbacks that people I've mentored got. So again, in my opinion, three domains that are marketable right now. One is forecasting. Again, when you're developing the project, dive deep into feature engineering. Like I mentioned, everything in the day to day of a data scientist. Dive deep into feature engineering. Forecasting is something that you can get very good results with simple, not simple, but less non-deep learning models, essentially like more ML statistical models, which are like a typical ETS, ARIMA, SARIMA models. You can get really good results with them, and you can do really interpretable error analysis on them. So when you're doing your projects, try and demonstrate these skill sets of feature engineering, modeling, error analysis, designing experiments, and doing hypothesis, and being able to explain to an interviewer and on your resume that you put some thought into it before inserting features into your model. And the second sort of marketable project is any kind of large scale prediction, primarily because um, sort of the big data move has been around for a while, but companies have been adopting it more rigorously. I would say post 2020. So a lot of companies are, or it's become more commonplace post 2020, I would say. So being comfortable with technologies like PySpark or any kind of distributed computing technology comes across very well, and having a project that demonstrates that is good. So again, hopefully we can share the presentation after the call, and I've linked a few data sets that can help you get started. With large scale prediction, what you need to focus on again is the feature engineering portion and the hyperparameter tuning portion. The modeling, more often than not, a lot of companies in production end up using gradient boosted models. I'm not saying that that's a model you need to go for, but it's a good model to have on your resume. But the true value where you can add, like especially for large scale prediction, is how you do your feature engineering and feature selection, and how you do your hyperparameter tuning. Especially because when you're dealing with large data, and especially when you have a model like gradient boosted trees where there are a lot of parameters you can optimize, being able to handle both of those at scale is comes across well essentially. And the last one, again, it's a pretty common one at this point because of the Gen AI wave. NLP products have always been popular, but because of the Gen AI wave, any sort of question answering projects are also sort of picking up in popularity. Um, and the final advice that I would give is whenever you're doing projects, especially um, projects that don't have any business impact, you still want to showcase the quality of your project. Typically, how you showcase quality of the work that you do is based on how much impact you can deliver on business. If you're doing academic projects, how you showcase quality of your work is by comparing the performance of your work with a baseline. Like in forecasting, the M series forecasting competitions are sort of a way to push forecasting field forward, and they have a lot of benchmark data sets where you can build models on and showcase that, hey, I built this model, I got this kind of performance, and it competes with SOTA in this manner. Similarly, in question answering, there are a lot of benchmark datasets. If you're completely new to question answering, what you can start with is the squad dataset. So this would be the first thing to keep in mind to increase your callbacks, which is having marketable projects. And when you're doing those projects, remember the expectations, the day-to-day expectations of a data scientist, and make sure you focus in on all those things: the hypothesis testing, feature engineering, modeling, error analysis. Productionization, again, some companies want data scientists to have that productionization knowledge. Some companies would fund that to machine learning engineer roles. So it depends. I would say focus on the uh, main these three main first, and if you have time left over, definitely go for productionization as well. The second portion of getting a callback after you have a good portfolio is having a good resume. So resume usually boils down to two things. One is getting past the ATS, the application tracking system, which sort of does sort of a keyword analysis of your resume to try and see how well it matches up with the job description. So a lot of people do spend a good amount of time altering their resumes. My advice: don't do that. The main thing to focus on is the skill section. Make sure you have a good skill section, specifically like programming languages, whatever you know, put it in. Tools and frameworks, especially for data scientists. There is a LinkedIn skills GitHub where you can go and see what the top skills are. It's linked in my top mate, and again, when you get the slides, you'll be able to see them. So you'll be able to see the top tools like PyTorch or TensorFlow, whatever the top tools are. And competencies, this is a key one. Usually like the machine learning techniques that you know, like recommendation systems, linear regression, logistic regression, these things you can add here, and this will help increase the chances of matching keywords. Another area where you can add or you can increase the chances of hitting keywords is when you add in your education, you can add in like in a smaller font coursework, and add in those titles of the coursework that have a high chance of hitting keywords. But the main thing is going to be a skill section. When you're thinking ATS, just focus on skill section. And the second thing to focus on is how you write your bullets. Each bullet needs to answer three questions. As a hiring manager, what I want to know when I'm reading a bullet, what I am looking for is what kind of problem has this candidate worked on? Because if he's worked on problems similar to the ones that my team works on, then the onboarding time is going to be drastically lower. So what kind of problems has he or she worked on? What kind of technical solutions have they built? And by that, they want to know the model names. Uh, Saying recommendation system isn't enough. Say what model name you're using. Saying CNN might be enough, but if you can be specific, ImageNet or some what architecture you're using, it would be better. Saying regression problem might be enough, but if you can specify the model name, it would be better, because if they know that you've used a specific model, and if their team uses that specific technique or specific models, it means again lesser onboard time, more seamless transition, and hiring managers prefer that. And the last one is the quantitative impact on business. You have to realize a data scientist's job is to improve business. Like most folks think that a data scientist's job is to build models. It really isn't. Like if you aren't able to improve business, you aren't really worth much as a data scientist. So you need to, each bullet has to convey the fact that you understand that my value is in improving business. Therefore, each bullet must show that I improved business by a certain quantitative metric. And again, with your metrics, be specific. Efficiency is not a metric. By efficiency, if you mean you used a certain X amount less resources, or you reduce time a certain X amount, then use those things like compute was decreased, or time taken was reduced by certain amounts. So don't use broad metrics. Be very specific again with your metrics. Essentially, give as much information as possible to the hiring manager in your bullet. Now, a common question that folks have is, won't my resume get too long, or won't my resume become too jargon heavy? So the first thing, I'll answer the second question first, which is the jargon heavy part. Um, Jargon, um, so there are different kinds of jargon. One is the technical domain jargon, and the other is the business domain or the application domain jargon. If your application domain is very niche, like I've seen a lot of people who worked in climate forecasting, and I've seen a lot of people who work with like improving quality of education. So in those domains, there may be jargon that's specific to that domain. Like I worked in climate forecasting. There's terms like decadal oscillation. It's not something that will translate well, or a person, when I applied for my e-commerce job, it's not something that I would put in my resume, because somebody coming from e-commerce won't understand that keyword. But that doesn't mean I remove keywords like two tower neural network, or a quantized version of YOLO. Those are model names and machine learning techniques that will translate well across our field. So don't shy away from the technical, as in the machine learning jargon. You can reduce the domain jargon as much as possible. The second question is, won't my resume get too long if I write bullets like this? If you put in a good amount of time or an effort, your bullet won't exceed more than two sentences. And if you feel like your project needs more than that, what often happens is you need to break that project into multiple sections. Like, for instance, my project, the first bullet I would talk about is only the modeling. To solve this problem, I built this model and it had this impact. And I did some feature engineering as well, which I want to convey, because it was sort of a sort of smart way in which I selected the features. So I wrote another bullet for that feature engineering portion, the techniques that I used, and based on ablation studies, what kind of impact that feature engineering had. So similarly, modeling can be one point, feature engineering can be one point, the productionization can be another point. But each bullet should be atomic in the sense that the bullet should address what problem, what technical solution, and what impact. But the entire project doesn't need to be one bullet. You can break your project across bullets. So that's the first thing. And second thing, if you feel your resume is getting too long, more often than not, your resume isn't really tailored. What a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people give this advice that, hey, tailor your resume based on the job description. I almost always say, no, don't do that. Because there are going to be a million job descriptions. If you're going to spend time tailoring your resume for every job description, you're going to spend a lot of time just writing resumes. So the amount of tailoring you can do to your resume is dependent upon the kind of work experience you had. So you can just look at your work experience and then decide how many resumes you want to create. Like for me, I had work in forecasting, NLP, and a bit in like multiple domains. So I had like one resume that was just forecasting heavy, one resume that was NLP heavy, and one resume that was a bit of everything. This is all the possible tailoring I can do for my resume. Even if if the job description comes across forecasting heavy, I use the forecasting heavy one. If the job description comes across NLP heavy, I use the NLP heavy one. If the job description had CV in it, I have no CV work. There is no way I can tailor my resume or create projects out of thin air to suit that JD. So this is all the tailoring I can do, and this way, all my resumes are pre-tailored. I've read through it multiple times. There are no grammatical errors. Please make sure there are no grammatical errors in your resume. It really doesn't come across well. Similarly, create tailored versions of your cover letter and why this company. Like a lot of people think these things aren't important. Like they aren't important if you don't submit them. But sometimes certain companies, if you don't submit them, they feel like you come across lazy. But if you are submitting something, don't write it on the fly. Again, your cover letters, you can't have like infinite version of your cover letters, because your cover letters come from the work that you've done. So I had like one cover letter which was based on a forecasting, the best forecasting project I had done, one cover letter based on the best NLP project that I had done, and one cover letter based on one of the recommendation systems project that I had done. So I just had three cover letters. I would just change the company name and a bit of the mission about the company. I would try and sync with the project that I had. But again, you can't create infinite versions of your cover letter. It'll come from your work experience. So create those cover letters ahead of time, create the resume ahead of time, create the why this company ahead of time, and then once you start applying for jobs, it's again workday is going to be cumbersome. It's going to take like 10 to 20 minutes, but copy pasting should be relatively faster, and you won't spend a good amount or a huge amount of time tailoring your resume. So this is another way to again improve the quantity of applications while maintaining good quality. I think I've given a lot of information. So maybe just to take a quick break, a short activity. There are three bullets on screen. These are bullets from actual resumes of people I've worked with to improve their resumes. Um, if I believe there's a chat, so if there's a chat or if you want to come off mute, let me know what you feel based on whatever you discussed thus far is the issue with maybe the first one. So just to read it out aloud, engineered enhanced search functionality in large language models by implementing embedding similarity and scoring metrics, resulting in a 10% increase in query processing efficiency and enabling data-driven insights.
I think it's too broad and it's not according to your three bullets that you mentioned. What's the problem? What's the solution? What's the impact? It's not specific.
Definitely,
What do you
definitely,
guys
yeah. So
doesn't talk about any specifics? Yeah.
yeah, too long jargons impact at the end. Yep. So yeah, the impact at the end is fine. I think jargon amount is also okay. What I would say is like it needs to be a bit more detailed. Like mentioning LLM, it's at this point it's actually very broad. When people working on OpenAI APIs are saying they're working on LLMs. Like if you're working on LLM, mention which model you're working on. Similarity and scoring metrics, again, kind of broad. Efficiency is a very broad metric, and enabling data-driven insights. Again, I'm not sure how the LLM was integrated into the query to improve the processing efficiency. Like if he's talking about time, I would think that it would take more time. What part of efficiency did it improve? Again, not coming across well. So overall, like a very interesting project. Like if I feel like if it's put across well, this would come across as something that would give you a very high callback rate. But just because it's written fairly vaguely, it comes across a bit off to a hiring manager. I'll also maybe take a few questions on the chat. How big is too big and how long is enough as per the resume? One page resume is always good because your resume is again a calling card. You just want to have enough relevant work to get a call back. It's not supposed to be a professional biography. And yeah, is it necessary to have metrics mentioned in all bullets? Ideally, yes, because that's how we show your value that you understand that as a data scientist, my job is to improve business by a specific amount. Um, sure, yeah, a bullet, again, the bullet has to show the impact. So the last bullet for metrics doesn't work, but you can split your bullets as one for modeling and one for HP tuning, yes. And no, there is no way to figure out which model certain companies use, actually. Yeah, similarly, I think maybe we can do the last bullet also. Any thoughts on why this bullet or how this bullet could be improved? To read it out aloud, utilized advanced statistical and data analytics methods, unearthing insights leading to a 15% revenue increase, addressing unexplored business questions. Yep, mentioned the method names. Yeah, statistical and data analytics methods are, yeah, it's too vague. Yeah, you guys are getting the hang of it. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So what insights, what techniques? Yeah, these are good questions. So yeah, exactly. So keep these in mind when you're writing your resume. When you go through your bullets, similarly ask these questions like what methods, what insights, what techniques, and yeah, you'll have like a really callback worthy resume by the end of it. The next one is landing referrals. Referrals is sort of a long game in sense that LinkedIn allows you only to send 100 connection requests a day. So you need to start ASAP. If you aren't already working on sending out connection requests, you should be sending connection requests 100 a week, every week. Primarily because the response rate is going to be really low, like maybe 5 to 10 people might respond to those connection requests, especially right now because a lot of people are asking for referrals. And a question most people have is, what do I send in a connection message? Be very direct. You don't have a lot of people say that, oh, I want to spend time developing a relationship with this person before asking for a referral. The thing is, you need to get your application in within 3 weeks of the job being posted. If not, since it works on a first come first serve basis, the chances of getting a call back sort of start dwindling. So if you feel like you can develop a relationship with that person within 3 weeks, it's okay. But what I did, I would send a message which said that, hey, I'm currently working at this position. I have one of my projects. Again, like I mentioned, I had like three tailored connection messages based on the job description. So whatever project aligned with that JD, I would mention that I have some experience working on this project. And could you refer me for this job ID role? I mean title. And yeah, always. I mean, being direct, I feel is the right way because it sort of um, re- you don't waste a lot of the time of the person you're asking a referral for. Mentioning these things about the position and relevant experience helps them build some kind of confidence in your credentials. And having the job ID and the title, again, the title as well, helps them understand if they are the right person to refer you. And the job ID they can immediately copy paste in the system and check out the JD as well. And yeah, apart from that, like I mentioned, 100 connection requests a week. Make sure you get your application in 3 weeks within when the job is posted. And if you want to increase your network, the other thing that I did was I simply started commenting on other content creators' posts. That's sort of how I started getting a bit more active on LinkedIn, and that brought more people to my profile. As it also sort of brings a sense of familiarity to people who use LinkedIn, that hey, I've seen his name around somewhere. So again, they feel a bit more comfortable referring you. So yeah, learning referrals is primarily a numbers game. If you're not already doing it, you should be doing it ASAP. Irrespective of where you're in your job hunt journey, if you're just starting your master's program, you should be sending 100 connection requests. If you're close to graduating, you should be sending 100 connection requests. It doesn't change. And next is interview preparation. So yeah, now I think pretty much everything I've used to improve the chance of callbacks we discussed. So the next is sort of interview prep. What does a data science interview look like? Essentially, there are like 6 to 7 different types of rounds. The first one, sadly, is going to be a data structures and algorithms rounds. Yeah, a data scientist day to day doesn't involve a lot of DSA, but it still remains the best way to sort of assess your problem solving within like 30 to 45 minutes. So you need to do lead code. Please do lead code. A lot of mentees have washed out of the DSA phase just because they don't do lead code. Arrays, strings, and dynamic programming. These are the three main areas. And lead code blind 75 is a list on lead code where you can sort of uh, find a set of questions that will cover pretty much 80% of the concepts that are out there. And if you need solutions, you can check out the Need Code channel. The next one is going to be, I mean, again, depends upon company to company, but probably a SQL interview. You don't need to know a lot of SQL. You don't need to know data modeling or anything like that. You just need to write clean CTEs, common table expressions, and you need to know how to use window functions fairly well. Again, I've linked some stuff to for those who are new to SQL, how to get started with it and where to practice. And the third one, statistics and probability. Be very confident of the fundamentals of statistics. This is where we get into like the meat of what a data scientist is, and statistics is like at the center of it. Again, I've linked a playlist which will walk you through pretty much all the fundamental statistical concepts, and the two main that are often tested are hypothesis testing and A/B testing. So be very good at that. Udacity has a free course on A/B testing that will teach you pretty much everything you will ever need to know about A/B testing. So um, going through that course, adding it on LinkedIn might not be a bad idea. And yeah, the next two rounds after DSA, the rounds that you're most likely to face issues with is the machine learning and deep learning rounds. So what topics to sort of focus on each I've mentioned again: feature engineering and selection. This means you need to be really good at understanding how to handle data, how to clean data, and how to decide what features are important and what aren't. So, especially like I've seen a lot of candidates who don't know how to answer simple questions like, "Hey, how do you detect outliers, or how do you handle them?" So, be thorough with your fundamentals as well. The second one is the bias variance trade-off, very commonly asked, loss functions, and again, yes, you need to know the formulae. There have been interviews where I've been asked like, what's the loss function for regression? So yeah, know the formulae. And the basic models, which is like linear regression, logistic regression, tree-based models, k-means, knn, svm. These models understand when to use them, what are their pros and what are their cons, and mainly model assumptions. Like one of the main things that folks are going to ask you is like, what are the assumptions for linear regression, and how do you know when, given a data set, how do you know if linear regression would be a good fit on it? Or why is random sampling important in a tree-based model? So uh, those model assumptions and model parameters, be very thorough with those. Deep learning can get very broad, but start with the basics, which is knowing the optimizers, loss functions, and the basic architectures. Then you can go domain specific based on what domain you are focusing on. Like NLP would be embeddings, transformers, BERT, and understanding a couple of the key metrics in NLP, like blue score or coherence, topic coherence, stuff like that. The next one, sorry, the next one, it's usually more for senior roles, but I've seen a lot of companies for some reason start asking this to entry and mid-level candidates as well, which is like the case study or the ML system design round. Essentially, they give you a broad problem and they ask you to solve it. It could be something like, hey, we've seen a drop in shop rate of one of our applications. What could be the reason? And then you have to figure out what is the reason, develop a solution for that, and decide how you're gonna push it into production. Or it could be developing a completely new feature, we want to figure out who to push out certain recommendations to based on their user behavior. How would you develop a model which decides who to send those recommendations to? Stuff like that. Usually you have to have a good framework in approaching case study problems. This is the framework that I used. Essentially clarify the problem, figure out what they want you to solve before actually starting to solve it, then decide what metrics the business is interested in improving. From those two things you can decide what kind of ML model you want to build and what model metrics you want to use. Then it's experimentation. You throw out, okay, these are like 3 or 4 models that I've used in the past that work well for these kind of problems. So I'm going to probably try them out and then mention this is how I'm going to productionalize, this is how I'm going to validate my model, and this is how I'm going to do A/B testing. So if you need practice, check out the Ace the Product Manager interview book. It is a book for product managers, but the thought process is very similar to how a data scientist would approach solving a problem. Again, the book doesn't have the technical details. Like there are other books like ML system design books, which can help you with those. But the thought process in this book is really good, and I feel helped me a lot. The last one is sort of behavioral interviews. It's fairly straightforward. You would face interviews like, how do you handle a difficult team member? How do you handle tight deadlines? How do you handle conflicting priorities? How do you handle when you conflict with your seniors? Stuff like that. essentially always follow the STAR format, the situation, task, action, result format. Primarily because, not because, I mean, it will help you sort of put together your thoughts, but more importantly, if you talk in a certain formatted way, it will be easier for the interviewer to understand what you're talking about. So they expect that, okay, he's going to talk about a situation first, I can make notes about that. He's going to talk about a task next, I can make notes about that. So they'll be able to assess you better if you stick to the format as well. Now, I know it provided a lot of information, like a lot of different rounds. So how do you approach it, or how do I approach prep? This is pretty much the sort of format that I followed when I was prepping full time. Essentially, lead code, I would try and do 1 to 3 questions a day. Like, sometimes the questions would be fairly easy and I could get through a few. Sometimes I would be stuck on one question. The next one is machine learning and deep learning theory. I would spend like 1 hour in the morning just focusing on that. It gives you a sense of satisfaction that you worked on some theory, worked through some questions and stuff like that, and it sets you up well for the day. Statistics and SQL, I spent like 1 weekend on statistics and 1 weekend on SQL. I made notes and I revised them just before my interviews. I never focused that much on stats and SQL apart from that. The next one is behavioral and case study rounds. Like I mentioned, I was reading I had read the ACE, the PM interview book here and there, and I gotten the framework down. Then after that, I would get questions from like searching on Lead Code, searching on multiple other platforms, and I would just uh, record myself, speak about it for maybe 30 to 40 minutes. And I would do that maybe once a week or twice a week to sort of see if I'm speaking in a clear manner and if I'm able to follow that framework fairly well. And last one is mock interviews. A lot of content creators offer free mock interviews. I offer free mock interviews. There are other people who have posted on LinkedIn who also offer free mock interviews. There might be people who are working in companies. You can ask them for mock interviews. Try and schedule them at least a week before your key interviews so that you get some prep in, and also you get some time to work on the feedback from that interview. Don't do mock interviews day before the interview. It's gonna it might, I mean, might really boost your confidence, but it might also crumble it. So don't do mock interviews before the day of the interview. Maybe like leave like a week before. This is pretty much what my schedule looked like. And yeah, this is pretty much everything I followed, and if all the strategies that I used in terms of improving callbacks and landing a role. The final question would be what next? Primarily, what should I do? A lot of people would be at different points in the journey of doing a job search, maybe starting out your course or maybe closer to your graduation. So this is sort of the framework that I provide people. If you have more than like 1 month till you start applying, you have like 1 month before your application start, like you're looking for maybe I guess summer internships are somewhat over and the job season, jobs are also sort of I mean, job hunt is sort of continuous. But if you're looking for something like fall internships, you have some time before you need to put in your application. So right now you should be focusing like 90% on building a good portfolio, building good projects, and 10% on networking and applications. If you have less than 1 month till when you need to start applying, start putting your resume into company website, then 50% of your time focus on interview prep, 40% on projects, and 10% again networking and filling out applications. If you're applying for jobs right now, I mean, you're in the process of applying for jobs, you're trying to land a role as soon as possible. If you're not getting callbacks, get your resume reviewed. You can find me on TopMate for resume reviews. Make sure you have good referrals. Like a lot of people ask referrals from SDs for data science roles, which may not work well. Or if you're aiming for a mid-level role, you might be asking for a referral from a entry-level data scientist. Again, may not come across well. Or sometimes certain companies have this thing where they don't really look at referrals from people who have just joined the company. So maybe target people who have been in the company for a while. So those are some ways to improve the quality of your referrals as well. But if you're doing all of that, then and if you're not getting callbacks, then spend a bit of time on your projects, try and improve them in some way, shape, or form, and 20% of the time interview prep, 10% on networking applications. If you're not converting interviews, which essentially means you have a good portfolio, then you don't need to spend any more time on projects. Focus your full time on interview prep and networking and sending out applications. And yeah, hopefully this framework should get you started on based on where you are in your journey. That's pretty much everything that I had. Are there any questions on chat? I can get to them now. See. Projects that have been done as a university project in personal idea, how would go about introducing business? Yeah, so for academic projects, ideally you would have a baseline or a SOTA in that field. SOTA meaning state of the art. Like if you're doing question answering, you have like a benchmark data set like Squad. If you're doing recommendation, Movie Lens is another benchmark data set. You have different benchmark data sets. If you're doing your research on that, you can compare your performance with that benchmark. If you're doing some kind of innovative work, then whatever baseline or whatever model was there prior, showcase how much improvement you have brought on top of that. So that would be another way to showcase the quality of your work. People understood how to get through ATS by putting in skills and projects matching JD. If 100 people apply, 500, 600 people get a good ATS score, but only 9, 10 get called back from shortlist. What is the decision process here? Do you think there is a luck factor when hiring managers select resumes to go through from? Yeah, typically it's the recruiter who selects. So usually what happens is that all the resumes that go through the ATS, the recruiter starts screening them. Usually they make the decision within the first 1 to 2 bullets. If they feel like the first 1 2 bullets are very relevant to the JD, they give the person the callback. So another tip would be your first bullets, make them really good, make them model centric as well. Like a lot of people put their graduate teaching jobs as the first bullets. Like some recruiters do sort of skim the resume and try to get your work experience. But if your graduate teaching assistantships aren't really relevant to a data science job, maybe don't put them as your first bullet. But yeah, usually the recruiter skims the resumes and whatever feels uh, comes across well, sort of gets a call back. So yeah, maybe that there is like a human error or luck factor, I guess. Any
There's
other
a question.
questions?
There's a question earlier. So the interview is always on tabular data, or could it be on images as well?
It depends upon the role. If it's a um, sorry, computer vision problem, they could ask questions on images. I've been asked questions on text data. So yeah, it depends upon the JD. Writing a self summary at the top relevant. My advice is no. I've never used it. Some people do say yes. Um, I guess it's more of a personal choice. If you're asking me, no. I typically, yeah, don't. For me, I don't do it. Is Start Scratch a good platform for data science coding? Data science coding is sort of rare. More often than not, it's just lead code coding. Very few companies do data science coding. Like I mean, Verizon. Sorry. Um, VMware. Yeah, a few companies like that do give you like a data set and expect you to code live. Most companies give you take home assignments. Interview Query is a platform that I typically use. Haven't heard of Start Scratch. Which platforms would you recommend for job applications? LinkedIn is pretty much all you need. What I would do, like what I did was, I would set up Google alerts on career pages of certain companies that I felt like most of my experience was in e-commerce. So pretty much any and every e-commerce company there was, I set up Google alerts on their career pages, and that's pretty much how I functioned. And we bypass the ATS system if we go through referrals. How does the referrals work in the backend? No, you don't bypass the ATS system if you go through referrals. Referrals essentially add on points. Essentially, you can think of it as a more of a point scoring system. If you get a good ATS score, that adds value. If you have a referral, that adds value. Everything adds value. You don't necessarily bypass any of the steps. Data science interview prep, interview query is a good site. Data Lemur is good for SQL. I'll actually maybe type that out. Um, Interview query, data lemur for SQL, and everything else. Coding is lead code. What else is there? Data science questions. Data science questions, I would just Google a set. I had like a couple of newsletters I subscribe to as well. Don't remember which ones, but if I do, I'll send it across after the meeting. Is pandas and numpy sufficient? No. You need to know some kind of modeling, like sklearn based modeling, ideally for entry level roles, and for mid to senior level roles, some kind of deep learning might be required based upon the domain that you're working. They're going to look at how much improvement we have on top of the benchmark. So you don't need to necessarily go head to head with the benchmark. Like when I compare with the benchmark, I usually mention things like my model has X% less features, my model is more explainable, my model is faster, stuff like that. So you don't need to go head to head with the benchmark, but it's good to compare it in some way with a benchmark to assess the quality of your work. Are they going to look at if we can implement these concepts or not? A re-implementation is also not bad as long as you can sort of explain it well in the interview. For a callback, also it sort of works. Yeah, it sort of works for in terms of a callback as well. But it depends. Like if other people have done projects on that, which is a bit more novel, the hiring manager may prefer those people. Yeah, re-implementation again. If you, it's a good way of like we call it like padding your resume. It's a decent way to pad your resume with quality projects at least. I think a few other people are typing. Low number of jobs. It's more that people are recognizing that data jobs need to be split out into machine learning engineering, data analyst, and data scientist. Like initially, people just used to hire data scientists. So there is a huge market, and a lot of programs did start up, and a lot of people did get in the data field. So yeah, there is definitely a lot more supply than demand right now. It should break even, hopefully in a few years. But yeah, right now we're sort of in the possibly worst. I wouldn't say worst, like it's sort of plateaued out right now. It's been this way for maybe 5, 6 months, and hopefully we're seeing improvement down the line. Resume does resume points generated through ChatGPT can be put in resume? Probably not. What level of depth is needed with respect to stats and math for data science entry roles? Again, stats, you just need to know what hypothesis testing is, what p-values are, and A/B tests. You need to know how to conduct an A/B test. That's pretty much it. You can develop both those skills within a weekend. You just need to like the playlist that I provided and the Udacity course. That's pretty much all you need. How did you keep your mind sane while going through rejections? Uh, I think I don't know, a lot of people have that like ability where they just go numb for the next 1, 2 months where they realize that okay, I just have to get through this. There's no other option. So you just don't feel at that point essentially, I guess. Is PhD required for data science role? No. You can definitely crack into it with right now masters is sort of a minimum, but if you have a good amount of experience, you may be able to get into with bachelors. Like I know a couple of people who got into the bachelors. Um, once a content creator, maybe I can send her profile across after this. What are you working on in Walmart? Like the problem and techniques. My problem domain is essentially improving item availability and item selection. Essentially, items. Essentially, whenever you want to buy something, it has to be available on Walmart, and you need to be. It shouldn't be out of stock. Essentially, those two are, I guess, the broad problem. So involves a bit of prediction models, a bit of recommendation systems. So that's sort of the space I'm working on. Link of the resources. I can't access the resources PDF. Which resources PDF? Like everything should be available on my TopMate. I'll drop the link to my TopMate just in case. Um,
In the presentation too?
yeah, everything on the presentation as well should be available. For fresher, which role is more available? Is it an analyst role? Then go. It depends upon your I mean, your portfolio. If you have a good portfolio, targeting a data science role is definitely possible. Like I've had people um, when I did my masters who had zero work experience, but they had good like quality projects. And they were able to crack into like applied science role. I was only able to crack into data science role at Amazon. Applied science is slightly higher. Hey, you can definitely land roles. It depends upon your portfolio. Look at your portfolio. If you feel like there's a lot of model building and model centric work, go for data scientist. If you feel that it's more statistics, descriptive analytics sort of work, go for analytics or business intelligence engineer, business analyst, those sort of roles, and you can sort of work yourself up to data science. And yeah, if it's more productionization, engineering, stuff like that, MLE, data engineer, those are the roles that you can target.
Yeah, I was also wondering from your own like perspective, like since you were in two of those tough job markets, how do you think, like, is it the similar case now this year? Or also you mentioned that we might have like more jobs in the future, like in 5 years, you said? Or what are your thoughts in the near term future?
So primarily right, so it's sort of, I mean, market is always going up and down. So I guess answering the first question, for me, I think I started applying for jobs around Feb of 2023, and I landed my job around May of 2023. Primarily because like I was at Amazon, people were being laid off left and right, and I felt like okay, this is just gonna be a matter of time. So I started applying sometime in like Feb, and I landed a job in May. So I was applying like for maybe 1.5 months with like no response, no interviews, no callback rates. Which is why I'm telling people you're sort of in it for a long haul, because after 1.5 months, the callbacks started coming in quite frequently, and the interviews started piling up quite well. So I think it just takes a bit of time, maybe like 1 to 2 months of silence, and then it starts coming in. So be ready for that. And with respect to the job market, um, it's so 2023, I would say, was sort of a cratering in the job market, primarily because of all the layoffs and a lot of candidates getting out into the market, and there weren't a lot of jobs. Now, sort of people feel like they can leverage Gen AI to do some kind of cool stuff. So there are openings specifically in Gen AI, or in that domain of search and chatbots and services has been consistently increasing. Are they data science jobs? Arguable. They're more like this AI engineer sort of new role that's sort of being defined. Um, the market, I would say, is sort of plateaued out, maybe slightly improving. And will data science jobs go back up? It the idea is it's hopeful. Like all surveys indicate that companies are looking to hire more data scientists, but how companies respond in surveys and how they act in real life can be quite different as well. But yeah, right now, all surveys indicate that companies are looking to, or they're stating that they want to hire more.
Interesting. Okay, let's see. I think
Project topic, should it be across different domains or should it be focused on one topic? Depends. Um, like if you have very little work experience, I typically ask people to go broad. If you have work experience, I ask people to dive deep. Primarily because again, right now, it seems like the job market is looking for folks who have a depth of knowledge rather than a breadth of knowledge. So if you have knowledge, especially in a specific business domain, it I've seen that it's been a bit more easier to convert a role. So yeah, if you have work experience or if you have experience in a particular business domain, try going deeper and deeper into that domain would be my recommendation. If not, go broad. Any tips on how one can plan out as a data science in supply chain domain? Maybe the kind of projects. Yeah, supply chain. It's usually starts with forecasting, some kind of high level forecasting, and then I mean, depends. Like the two main problems are demand forecasting and route planning. Those are the two main areas in supply chain. So for demand forecasting, you can start with simple statistical techniques. For route planning, it would be a bit more operations research, optimization, and like integer programming, linear programming, those kind of things. It still falls within the data science domain because you can use ML algorithms also to do optimizations, but you need a lot of operations research knowledge as well. So yeah, whatever problem area you find interesting, you'll be able to dive deep. And again, right, yeah, we have ChatGPT, so getting a study plan is somewhat easy now. I can't see the resources link you shared on your TopMate link. Can you be specific? So TopMate, the data science interview prep package would contain everything. Again, all the resources are free, so you guys should be able to download it for free. And creating a callback worthy resume would help with everything with the resume. What specific resource would you need?
Yes, I'm looking at your top mate. There's packages. One, is it the one that you said data science interview prep package? Is it the one or?
Yeah, data science interview prep package. So it has the entire roadmap with links to projects. It has I mean, everything you need for the callbacks, and it has the resume template as well. So hopefully that should get you started with everything you need to crack a role.
Well, looks like more people want to ask. I must say, this was one of the most informative sessions we had so far. And I
Awesome.
think that the amount of like practical tips that I got is just like so much. We need to create a summary of our talk.
For sure.
Yes. Oh, by the way, we have like some people in our community that are also currently job searching actively. And I wanted to ask, like, what was the average for your application count per week? Because you said there's 100, you said 100 per week for the connection requests, but what about the applications?
As in whatever was available on LinkedIn, I would apply. So I don't know.
Wow. So like couple hundreds a week or?
I mean, when I started out, definitely around that range. But yeah, then the number of job postings, new ones are rare. So you usually apply like 100 to 200 in the first few weeks. You apply 100 a week, then it starts dwindling 50, 25, 10. Yeah, it depends upon how many postings are there. But yeah, whatever was on LinkedIn, whatever I felt like I could crack, I would apply. Do you
Wow.
suggest easy apply on LinkedIn? Sorry. Yeah, do you suggest easy apply on LinkedIn? It ain't bad. Like if the smaller companies usually use easy apply because they can't really, or they don't, they're not integrated into Workday. It still works, but almost always try and get a referral. Don't apply it through LinkedIn. Like apply via the referral. Because yeah, I mean, there's almost zero chance of getting called back without a referral at this point. Like there's almost zero chance of getting a referral with a referral at this point.
There's another question up there. Do you read research papers to stay on top of advances in DSMLAI aside from newsletters?
Uh, so for me, if like so an archive is pretty much the only thing I use because it's free. But yeah, archive I sort of just search e-commerce almost like every Saturday, and maybe read like one or two papers, but that's about it. And yeah, I have like a few newsletters. I have most of the rest of the stuff I get from LinkedIn. Like I have content creators like Zach Wilson for data engineering, Aishwarya Srinivasan. There's this guy who wrote the ML system design book. I forget his name, but yeah, there are other a couple of content creators I follow on LinkedIn who sort of let me know what's happening. I guess in the AI space. There is a guy called Sumit. Maybe I can link a few of them on chat. Let me just open my
That would
LinkedIn.
be great. That would be awesome. And some people are asking for the presentation. Is it also on the package?
No, the presentation I created for this session, I can maybe share it with you, and or you could put it up, or I
Yeah.
can send it out somewhere.
Yeah, if
Hmm.
you send it to me, I'll share it with everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Zach Wilson. Zach, I think is fairly famous at this point. But yeah, I'll start with him.
Yes, this session
Um,
is recorded, and we're going to share the link, and that's where we can put the presentation too.
Back, Shreya, Shreya.
Follow our newsletter too. We have a newsletter called Break into
Definitely.
Data.
Um, and who else? Let me see. How do I figure out who I follow? LinkedIn has the worst UI ever.
That's true.
Um,
You can just put their names, people will be able to find.
yeah, I think I put two. Let me see if I can find more. Yeah, following and followers. Yes, following. Yep. Zach Wilson. Oh, Arpit Bayani is good. Yeah.
Somebody is asking,
Wait,
Shiram is
this
asking, is it advisable to apply for startups and small companies?
again, it depends upon where you're coming from. Like, if you're on like something like an F1 visa, H1B visa, startups may not be able to afford an H1 visa. I mean H1B visa, down the line. So if you're okay with that, go ahead for it. And yeah, you actually have a better chance of getting a call back from a startup. So it depends upon your particular scenario. Yeah, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Alex Roy.
Arpit is a good person for any of your engineering questions. Yusuf has an amazing GitHub of I think almost like 200 plus data science interview questions, which is good.
Wow.
Aman is like a leader, one of the Amazon VPs for I think Alexa or AWS. And yeah, he posts a lot of content. He has his own page where you can pretty much get like A to Z tutorials of a lot of stuff. Again, everything for free. And Alex Hugh has like a cool system design interview book, which if you're going for your system design rounds can be helpful. And there is one more person who wrote the ML system design book. I'm trying to find their name. Yeah, it's the same guy, Alex Hugh. I think those are a good set. Yeah, Benija is also good. And yeah, Ali K. Miller, I think, is sort of the most followed person on LinkedIn. But yeah, I'll drop her name as well.
Who's that?
Ali K. Miller, she is, I mean, she has her own business. She has like, I think, 1.5 million followers on LinkedIn or something.
Oh, wow. Oh, you also mentioned there's another woman who got a job with the bachelor's degree only, and she's a content creator, you said.
Yeah, I think she works at one of the shoe companies. Was it Nike? No, right? Under Armour, I think. No. Damn. What is Steph Curry's brand? Uh, Steph
I don't
Curry
know, guys.
shoe.
Does anyone know? I'm asking because this is my situation. I'm a
Under
bachelor
Armour.
with with like and the content creator. I don't have masters.
Oh, dang, I forgot her name. Let me.
Your armor motto.
Yeah, Under Armour. Just trying to remember what her name was. Oh, damn. I'll
Megan?
have to maybe check
Oh
my.
no, that's not Megan. Uh,
Let me just check
how
my
many followers does she have?
email. No clue.
Okay.
Uh, just a couple of papers. What do you organize? Papers you read, citations and e-commerce. Anything to do with e-commerce, I would read. I typically don't read the entire paper. Like I read the abstract. If it seems interesting, I put it into my reading list. If not, I chuck it. And again, even when I read the paper, I don't read the entire paper. I just read maybe the abstract, the conclusion. Based on that, I decide whether to read the technical portion. And I again, there's a difference between reading a paper to implement it and reading a paper to just to stay aware of the field. Like I sometimes I just read it when I see like, oh, there's a new architecture, like, oh, this switch transformer, I've been hearing a lot about it. What the hell is it? So I just read it on a high level to understand what it is. How much time do you think we should dedicate to a data science project? Depends upon how fast you can code and how good you are with concepts. But typically, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah.
Guys,
And
by the way, if you're in the stage where Karun shared, where you have to dedicate 90% of your time to project building, then you should definitely be doing our ML 30-day challenge this month.
for sure, yeah,
Mm. All right. Well, if you guys exhausted the number of your questions, we could be slowly wrapping this up. But Karun, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing all your experience. Let's see, let's get our last round of questions. And hopefully, we'll see you again in our community.
for sure,
And
for sure.
yeah, especially this month, there's so many people that have questions around like what kind of projects to build. And I just loved like to summarize my favorite like points was how you had three resumes only based on your technical experience. And that was just eye opening for me because many people just say tailor your resume per the position. And I'm like, oh my gosh, when do you guys have time, right? And people say we use AI tools, and I'm like, I think it's still I think it's still a lot of time, but the way you think it makes it more like understandable how like hiring managers think and how companies think. And even when you said like reducing the domain specific keywords towards like technical jargon, that was like also a great point. And yeah, and we recorded this session and we're gonna release it on YouTube for everyone who wants to go over it again, because there's been lots of great details that you can look over. Yeah, and would love to have you again in the
Yeah, yeah.
future.
Looking forward.
And guys, please go ahead and follow Karun on LinkedIn. He creates content on data science almost daily. He's very active there, and check out his top mate again. He's very sought after there. So if you by the way, you didn't share your own LinkedIn. You shared all of these people's LinkedIns.
My bad. Let's drop
That's
my
only
LinkedIn as well.
yes, you are the person. Yes, guys, you'll get the recording. I agree with Mary, I like the suggestion. Okay. Yeah, share what you learned in this chat and connect with each other as well. Share your LinkedIns. This is an opportunity for you to network. You have a common talking point now after this event. And yeah, and here's Karun's LinkedIn. Let me know if I'm pronouncing your name, by the way. I should have asked in
Yeah,
the
yeah, it's
beginning.
Karon. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming, Karun, and
Yep,
enjoy your weekend.
yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.